For those who live in Navy Yard, did you know you can order Walters online for pickup? Visit waltersdc.com, click on menus, and then push the order online button so it's ready when you get there to take back home with you.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
The 2-1. Swing a high drive, deep right field for Soto. He has got another one. This one is way out of here into the second deck. About 5 rows into the second deck over the bullpen. It's now the Nationals 6 and the Mets 4. Soto has homered twice. This run a 2-run shot. He's got 9 homers on the season. Here's Jacob Young, 6-4 Nationals. Big insurance run out there. Here's the pitch. Swing a fly ball, left center field deep for Young. Soto going back to the warning track. He leaps at the wall. He can't get it. It's gone. It's into the bullpen. Slugging Jacob Young has another home run. Could be a second straight night. The Mets had a 2-homer game and a loss. Last night, Bichette. 2-0. Line drive left center field. Young chasing. He's closing. He runs it down. He makes the catch in the gap. And the Nationals win it 8-4. Andrew Alvarez has his first major league save, saving a win for Zack Littell. And the Nationals have won 2 of the first 3 games in this series against the Mets, and they're back to the 500 mark after 50 games at 25-25.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Nationals Park, where the Nats have clinched a winning homestand to get back to 500. An 8-4 win over the New York Mets at Nationals Park on Wednesday evening in Game 3 of a 4-game series. The Nats now are 4-2 on this 7-game homestand. The Nats now have won 10 of their last 16 games, and the Nats in Major League Baseball's 2026 regular season now are 25-25. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by Shirtgood, owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan. Shirtgood makes funny and local shirts, such as the iconic Howie Kendrick foul pole shirt. Check out Shirtgood at shirtgoodhq.com or ShirtgoodHQ on Instagram and use the promo code NatsChat for 10% off your order. The Nats in this series are pounding Mets pitching. The Nats over the first 3 games of this series have totaled 24 runs as the offense continues to roll. The Nats are number 1 in MLB in runs scored, 279. Yes, are dead last in MLB in runs allowed, 294. But you know, Mark, you take a step back, 50 games in, 25-25. We are on the doorstep of Memorial Day weekend, which is the first of the 3 holiday checkpoints in the MLB season. I don't know how any Nats fan could be unhappy with what's happening here. 25-25 with a shockingly great offense. And the Nats could go into Memorial Day weekend with a winning record. Who expected that?
I'll tell you what, Al, as Nationals fans know, the 50-game mark has a particular significance to this franchise, 19-31. In 2019. I'll tell you what, 25-25 sounds a whole lot better than that. And we saw how that season ended. I'm not suggesting at all that that's where this one is going, but I don't think even the most optimistic person saw 25-25 to start the year. I just really don't think that. And if they did, I don't know if they saw it happening the way that it's happening like this. This offense is really something to behold. And Blake Butera was asked before the game, you know, we're far enough into the season now. Does he think this is sustainable? And he said, yeah, he does.
I do. Yeah, I think this is who we are.
He thinks this is enough of a sample to suggest that this is who they can be. They believe that this could be a good lineup, but now that you're seeing it in practice, and what I love, and you saw it in this game in particular, they didn't just score runs one way. They got 2 big home runs from C.J. Abrams and the suddenly red-hot Jacob Young. They also manufactured runs in their other rallies with quality at-bats, great base running, sacrifice fly, squeeze bunt, just productive at bats. And that's a great sign. If you can now score runs both ways, you do have a chance to sustain something like this. I don't know if they're going to lead the league in runs at the end of the season, but with each passing day, it sounds more and more plausible to me.
Well, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but when we did our predictions, I did say that I thought that the Nats could do well over the first, say, 50 games, and I threw out 26 and 24. I thought that with the new process, we could actually see this team surprise some people early, but I did say, hey, there's a pretty good chance the water will find its level, and, this team will end up having the kind of record that we more or less anticipate. I think we both finished with around the same win total, right? Like something around 70 wins, if I remember correctly. That still could happen, but to the point of how much of this is sustainable. So it does start to remind you of 2005, right? When the Nats were stunningly great in terms of the record 50 and 31. But if you dug deep at all on the 50 and 31, you saw that that was a house of cards that had a good chance to come tumbling down, and sure enough, it did. I don't know that this offense is a house of cards that is going to come tumbling down. I mean, like you said, is it going to remain the number one offense in the majors in terms of runs scored? Maybe not. But can this end up being a top 10 offense? Maybe like a top 8 offense? Yeah, I think it can be. And, there's nothing about this to where you say, well, all these guys are having career years, because really it's C.J. Abrams and James Wood, and then it's a lot of a little, and it's the matchups being played well, it's guys being deployed properly. There are a few people who are perhaps playing above their skis. You think about like a Jose Tenor right now doing what he's doing. But beyond that, I mean, I don't know why this can't end up being a really good offense. And we look back years from now on the 2026 Washington Nationals as having had the most stunningly good offense in franchise history. Like, we really may be looking at something that special right now.
I'll give you a virtual pat on the back for that. I do remember that now that you did say that. And I think I said you were crazy to believe that, but maybe you weren't. Yeah, I like what you're saying there. And I think that the key to this is they're getting it from all over the place. As you said, it's only the two guys, the big boys, that are really putting up huge numbers, and everybody else just kind of doing what you hope they would do, or if nothing else, doing it in the right moments. I think the other point, and you've brought this up, and it's absolutely true, and you hope it continues to be the case, they haven't had any injuries on the position player side. The only roster moves they've made from position players have been sending a guy up and down to AAA. So that makes a huge difference. And even though the actual batting order has changed a lot on a daily basis, it's basically been the same 13 guys who are involved in this one way or another. Now you sub in Dylan Cruz, take out Brady House, but it's essentially been the same idea of what they're trying to do. And I think that's important, the continuity of the personnel. And 50 games in, we kind of know what to predict of how Blake Butera is going to manage a game from an offensive standpoint. He's going to match up with the starting pitcher, and we know who starts against the righties and who starts against the lefties. And then he's going to make those switches mid-game when they get to the bullpen and try to find the better matchups for the second half of the game. It's worked really well, and you know what everybody's role is right now. And I was talking about this earlier in the day with somebody, how the last few years, they always had at least one and often two guys on their bench who never played. They were just wasting away on the bench. Nasim Nuñez, his first year. Michael Chavis, I think he had fewer than 100 plate appearances over an entire season. That's not the case anymore. Everybody who's on this team has a role and is being used and deployed in a way that tries to maximize their performance. And that's when you put that all together, how you have a team with the most runs scored, even when you look individually and don't see stats that just blow your socks off.
Honestly, the thing that may have the hardest time sustaining is the wonderful injury luck with position players. Like, that might be the thing that does regress more than anything, because I don't know how this continues to where they stay this healthy with the position players to where nobody goes on an injured list. Virtually no roster moves end up being made. Like, that's almost unheard of for an MLB team to have that kind of injury luck in a good way with a group of position players. But we've seen that so far. And so you would say, okay, does that regress to the mean? Or is this just one of those years in which the Nats are enjoying great injury luck? We see this in sports sometimes. A team is unusually lucky when it comes to injuries in a season, and then can be unusually unlucky when it comes to injuries in a season. This is what happened with the Washington Commanders. 2024, fabulous injury luck. 2025, wretched injury luck. I just looked this up, by the way. The 2005 Nats at 50-31 had a run differential of +2. I mean, that reeks of house of cards that will come tumbling down, and sure enough, it did. 31-50 over the final 81 games. This team is not a house of cards from a run differential standpoint. This team is 25-25 with a run differential of -15. This is not a team that is like outpacing the run differential by any great means.
Yeah, the thing about that inaugural team in 05 is it was all about the pitching. Their offense was near the bottom of the league, and they were winning games 3-2. Do you remember the 10-game winning streak in June of that year that propelled them into first place? Every game was a one-run win with Chad Cordero hanging on for dear life in the 9th inning. And I remember, it's probably safe to say now he's long since departed us, I remember at one point there in July as it was starting to go south, Frank Robinson telling a group of us who covered the team off the record that he knew it wasn't going to be able to be sustained. I think he referred to it as fool's gold. And he knew that because the offense just was not good enough. The pitching stayed good for the most part during the year, but you can't win that many one-run games, those kind of close, low-scoring games if you don't have the bats, and that team did not have them. Frank knew it. I think Blake Butera doesn't have Frank Robinson's baseball knowledge, certainly, at this point. I think he has a right to be more optimistic about what he's seeing from this group because of that offense.
The 2005 Nats were so much fun and are such a beloved team in the history of Washington, D.C. sports, but they are a fascinating case study in run differential and what it means to be good from a record standpoint versus what it means to be like legitimately good. 50-31 run differential of +2. The expected won-loss record at that point was 41-40. The Nats were outpacing their expected record by that point by nearly a full 10 games. Anyway, that was 2005. We're in 2026, and the Nats on Wednesday evening doubled up the New York Mets 8-4 the final.
This episode is brought to you by Shirtgood. Owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan and Maryland native, Shirtgood makes funny and local shirts, hats, and more. For Nats fans, they have a great embroidered hat with the Half Street Southeast street sign, a We'll Always Have 2019 t-shirt with that iconic Howie Kendrick World Series foul pole, and a lot more. There's also a hat and a shirt making fun of that "This copyrighted telecast" baseball disclaimer you always hear. Plus, a lot more for baseball fans, DC area locals, and folks with a good sense of humor. Check them out at shirtgoodhq.com or shirtgoodhq on Instagram. That's SHIRTGOOD, and use code NATSCHAT for 10% off your order.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Thornton ready from the first base side of the rubber. He brings it home. And a fly ball right field, well hit. Sending Bench back to the warning track, to the wall. He leaps and it's gone! C.J. Abrams with a 3-run homer, and the Nationals jump out 3-0 in the first inning. Into the first row over the out-of-town scoreboard, home run number 10 for Abrams. RBIs 40, 41, and 42. He is now tied for the Major League lead in runs batted in.
The latest offensive prowess on display from the Nats. 8 runs, 10 hits, which were 2 home runs, 3 doubles, and 5 singles, 2 walks, 4 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Let's hone in on the 2 Nats who homered in this game, C.J. Abrams and Jacob Young. C.J. Abrams, I know the defense is a problem, but what's also true is that he is surging offensively. He is the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, 2 for 4 with a 3-run homer and a single. Abrams in the Nats, 3-run first, a 1-out, 3-run homer to right field for a 3-0 Nats lead. Yet another instance of instant offense for the Nats. More first-inning runs for the Nats. Abrams' OPS now at .928. Interesting comments from Nats manager Blake Butera during his post-game press conference about the simplified swing of C.J. Abrams.
Yeah, it just looks like extremely simple and calm in the box. Everything seems free and easy for him right now. It doesn't look like he's trying to do too much.
And man, does he look at ease these days when he's hitting.
It looks so smooth, so comfortable. He's really just zeroing in on picking good pitches over the plate to hit, having a short, compact swing, and you see what the results are. And as we've discussed, the consistency there, even during his great first halves in some recent years. Remember, he would have like a great April and a terrible May, and then a great June. And this so far, there's been little blips, but for the most part, this has been consistent all the way through these first 50 games. And if you'll indulge me here, I'd like to talk about RBI, not RBIs, RBI. He's got 42 of them now in 50 games, and that's on pace for 136 on the season. And I am not going to try to sit here and tell you that that's the most important stat. It is certainly not the most important stat. But if you drive in 136 for a season, you did something really well. And that's exactly what he's doing. And I think it underscores the value of him in the middle of the order instead of the top of the order. I would love, and I'm sure the team has the technology to figure this out on their own. If you took his previous years, especially the first half, and had him have the exact same production, but hitting in the fourth spot instead of the first spot, how many RBI would he have had those years? I have no idea, but it's got to be more. But what he's doing right now is coming up with guys on base and driving them in to an extent that you hardly ever see. And out of a shortstop, that is extremely valuable.
And he is hitting like an elite shortstop. I brought this up a few weeks back. Who is he as a shortstop? Is he Bobby Witt or is he Ian Desmond, And right now, he's playing like, Bobby Witt at his best, or Gunnar Henderson at his best, although Henderson's not exactly having a great season here. But like Abrams is producing like an elite shortstop, like one of the top 3 or 4 shortstops in MLB. Now, again, the defense, that's a different conversation. We've had that plenty of times. But like, I don't want to lose sight of this. Guy's got an OPS well above 900. This is the C.J. Abrams who everyone has been begging to see. This was the Abrams who the Nats wanted to see off the trade for Juan Soto. And by the way, can I just say this? So Juan Soto is killing the Nats this season, okay? He is destroying Nats pitching this season. 2 more homers on Wednesday evening. And you know what? Nobody cares. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's really noticing it. Nobody's getting sucked into the conversation of, we used to have this guy. We don't have this guy. What happened to us? Nobody's talking about that because the Nats have moved on and are doing well. And I love that. I think that is so healthy. I think that is so good for this franchise, for this fan base. Soto is tormenting the Nats. And it's not even a conversation piece right now. Not on this podcast, not online, nowhere. It's not coming up at all.
And one of the reasons for that is that the Nats are beating the Mets and have a better record than the Mets. Soto is having another fantastic year. The team he's playing for is not. And, he's been back so many times now. Like, he gets nice applause when he comes back, but it's not an event like it was those first couple years with him. He's settled in New York. Obviously, James Wood and C.J. Abrams have helped soften the blow of that, as well as what we may see in the future from others. But yeah, they have absolutely moved on. It's, Soto, I was thinking about this yesterday. There's barely even anybody for him to catch up with on the Nats side, both from a player standpoint, coach standpoint, front office. There aren't that many people left anymore that he played with. It shows how much turnover there's been, but it underscores what you're saying there, how they've really moved on from each other. It's okay. Yes, it's always going to be painful to think about. But if the Nats come out in a better place in the long run because of it, it helps soften that blow. And I guess you say let him keep homering against them as long as the Nats keep beating him.
Jacob Young, he was the Nats starting center fielder and number 7 batter. He went 2 for 4 with a 2-run homer and a double. Remember, it was just a few days ago the guy took a hit by pitch on the ribs. Well, he didn't go on the 10-day injured list, and he had multiple extra base hits in this game. He and the Nats 2-run 8th had a 2-out first pitch, 2-run homer to left field for an 8-4 Nats lead. Could it be that Jacob Young, more than anyone, epitomizes the way that the Nats' new analytics-based process is working? 6 home runs over 173 plate appearances. He He came into this regular season with 5 home runs over 1,006 career plate appearances. He already has more homers than he had in his entire career. And you asked Blake Butera about this during the post-game press conference. This is something what Jacob Young is doing. And it's interesting, his OPS is only 666. It's not like he overall is thriving offensively, but from a home run hitting standpoint, he has improved by leaps and bounds.
Right. And I think it's important to note here that this is something that Jacob Young was already trying to do on his own, even before Blake Butera and their coaching staff had joined the organization. He even mentioned, Jacob did, that he was starting to work on this in the second half of last year, just the idea of not hitting the ball on the ground as much and just getting the ball in the air. And then he went to Driveline in Florida over the winter and really worked at it there. Came to spring training. I think I wrote about it, and we may have talked about it back then, this idea of him trying to develop more swing velocity, which would then lead to harder contact and elevating the ball. And it's taken a little while to see the results, but we're definitely seeing the results. The double that he hit 2 innings prior to the home run, almost, I think it went off the wall or just like the base of the wall. He's had more of these kind of at-bats, not just the home runs. He is hitting the ball with way more authority than he ever has before. And that's a great sign. As we've always talked about with him, he doesn't need to be an elite hitter at all. But if he can just be even a marginal hitter combined with the Gold Glove caliber defense, that makes him so valuable. And maybe we don't have to think about him as the fourth outfielder or the odd man out of this outfielder. All these young, talented outfielders they have, we tend to think, well, he's not going to be part of that picture. If he can hit like this, he can be a member of this lineup because you're combining some power with obviously speed and Gold Glove defense. They'll find a spot for him if that's the case.
Absolutely. And that OPS may not be sky high, but it is intimidating. 666, the OPS of evil from Jacob Young. How about Keibert Ruiz? This is something, the tear that this guy all of a sudden is on. He is the Nats starting catcher and number 9 batter, 2 for 3 with a double and an RBI single. Now, he did get thrown out at home in what ended up being a rather interesting occurrence here. But Ruiz in the Nats 1-run second, a 1-out RBI single into left field for a 4-1 Nats lead to wrap up an 8-pitch plate appearance in which Ruiz was down in the count at 1.12. Such a good plate appearance by Keibert Ruiz there. And then bottom of the 5th, he had a leadoff first pitch double to left field off the outfield wall. Now, he did get thrown out at home on Luis Garcia Jr.'s 2-out single to right field off a nice throw by the Mets right fielder Carson Bench, and C.J. Abrams was on deck, so that was a bad out.
Now the 1-1. Garcia lines a base hit into right field. Ruiz is being waved home. Bench comes up throwing. The throw to the plate, a slide and a tag, and he is out.
Before we explore that further, Keibert Ruiz now has his OPS up to 768, including, and this is remarkable, a slugging percentage of an even 500. He is slugging 500. He has gone from being virtually an automatic out with putrid numbers. I mean, his numbers just a few weeks ago weren't just bad. They were wretched. They were, at that low level that we had become accustomed to in recent years. And now all of a sudden, he is having a really good season, a 500 slugging percentage. His month of May is off the charts. He's slugging 806 in this month of May. That's not his OPS for this month. That's his slugging percentage for this month. So can't say enough good things about what Keibert Ruiz is doing. And regarding the out at home, so there was a lot happening there, and Blake Butera wanted to challenge, couldn't challenge.
The Mets have left the field. The Nationals want to challenge the blocking of the plate.
Well, Todd Tichenor's crew chief, very emphatic coming in. Say something to Blake Butera, like, did he not do it in time?
From your vantage point, what happened there?
Let me first just real quick throw one more Ruiz stat at you. 7 games ago, 7 games that he's played, his OPS was 506. It's now 768. He's done that in 7 games. He has a higher OPS now than Dalen Lyle, who we tend to think of as one of the better hitters on the team and who just went, on his own hot streak last week in Cincinnati. That is remarkable. And the single, to me, the power has been great. His second inning single, infield in, runner on third, 1 out. This is exactly what they need Keibert Ruiz to be better at. Get the ball past the infielders and hit it with enough authority that runner is going to score. And he did. He hit a sharp ball through the hole on the left side, scored the runner. That's the kind of at-bat they need from Keibert Ruiz to get that runner in. The power's great, and you want to see more of that. But that was an 8-pitch at-bat, and he finally waited and got the right one over the heart of the plate instead of reaching for something way out of the zone and making weak contact. And he hit the ball hard, got it through the infield. So I wanted to mention that. All right, the play at the plate.
And Blake Butera is not going to be allowed to challenge.
It starts with, to me, I think it's a bad send by Victor Estevez. Ruiz, we know, is a slow runner, and you have C.J. Abrams due up next with 2 outs. So I think it starts with that. Now, it did take a good throw, and perhaps in the end, the catcher blocking the plate to get him, so you can excuse that a little bit. What happened, according to Blake Butera, as soon as it happened, he came out of the dugout to talk to the plate umpire and to ask if they could challenge for the catcher blocking the plate. And he was told by Todd Tickner, the crew chief who was at second base, that he didn't properly challenge that. You have to, from the dugout, put your hand up and let them know, hold on, don't let the other team leave the field because it was the final out of the inning. Don't let TVs go to commercial break. Hold on, and then say, yes, we want to challenge it. And Butera's argument was he didn't waste any time. He immediately went out there and said it, but he acknowledged that by the letter of the law, he didn't do it properly. And he'll know now, whenever it happens again, you got to stay in the dugout and stick your hand up.
The second base umpire came in and was like, pretty adamant that I had to put my hand up first. Technically, that's the rule, so yeah, it probably is my mistake.
Now, the fascinating question here, of course, let's say that was Terry Francona in the dugout, or say Dave Roberts doing the exact same thing that Blake Butera did. Do you think an umpire is going to tell them, no, you didn't hold your hand up, we're not going to allow this? That feels a little bit like taking advantage of a rookie manager. And by the way, Tickner was behind the plate 2 days ago, and the crew chief, when there was the question of can you use a position player in extra innings, and Butera knew the rule and Tickner did not. And maybe this was a little bit of giving it back to you. I'm going to show you I know this rule and you don't know that rule.
Thought I was pretty obvious out there when I told him right away, asked him if he had it. No, all right, we want to challenge it. But I guess the rule says I have to put my hand up first, and I didn't do that.
It's unfortunate that would happen like that. Thankfully, it didn't affect the outcome of the game in any way. I do think he was blocking the plate, and they might have gotten that overturned if not for it. But lesson learned, I guess you have to do it the proper way, which is stay in the dugout, hold your hand up, and then ask for the challenge.
I was just going to ask you if you think this was at all tied to Jorbit Bibas gate from earlier in this series, and that you brought it up without me even bringing it up, I think answers the question. There is a high probability, or at least a decent probability, that the former had something to do with the latter. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
Ortiz drills it to deep right center field, back towards the wall, and this ball is gone. Abimelech Ortiz unloads on a cutter from Wyatt Olds. It's his 4th home run of the year.
Window Nation has a great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast, the Buy 4, Get 4 free sale, during which you could replace all of your home's windows and get half of them for free. Plus, you can get your windows with no money down and no payments or interest for 2 years. The sale ends soon, so call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com now to book a consultation. 866-99-WINDOW-NATION or windownation.com to book a consultation, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Third baseman not in all that close. Nuñez squares and he bunts it first base side. Fair ball. It's fielded by Vientos. It'll turn and run to the bag to get the out on Nuñez. So Cruz scores. They executed perfectly. Second out of the inning, and Nuñez gets his 15th RBI of the year. He bunted it hard to make the first baseman field it, and there was no chance at all. Vientos throwing home.
All right, Nasim Nuñez. He was the Nats starting second baseman and number 8 batter. 0 for 2 with a walk and an RBI sac bunt. Had a stolen base and made another tremendous defensive play. Top of the 6th. A one-out ground out by Mark Vientos. Nuñez, a spectacular diving, backhanded catch of a grounder up the middle of the infield. Then got up, made a good throw to first base for the putout.
Swinging a ground ball up the middle. Nuñez dives, stops it, gets to his feet, throw it out first. He's out! What a
Nasim Nuñez.
We've said this many times, but Nasim Nuñez, I mean, he is like a human highlight machine with his defensive prowess, and what a play that was in that 6th inning.
Tremendous. He also turned a really spectacular 3-4-3 double play with Luis Garcia, where the throw from Garcia was not exactly picture perfect, and Nuñez is so good that he can then turn it right back and fire it to be able to complete that on when the first half of the double play was not great. We may be getting to a point where we need to start talking about gold gloves with Nuñez. I mean, he's playing almost every day there. He's all over highlight reels. You would think that people around the sport are going to start picking up on this, what he's doing, and combine that with the fact that he leads the league in stolen bases and is producing some on offense. The running joke with gold gloves has always been, well, you have to hit enough to be able to be a gold glover, which makes no sense at all. But remember, those are voted on by coaches and managers in your league, as well as there is a stat component to it now. Just by hearing his name more and seeing what he's doing, it may draw more attention to him, and perhaps the rest of the league is going to realize that he at least deserves consideration, if not actually winning a gold glove.
And you know what? If the Nats keep winning and they become one of the stories of the season, that could help something like Nasim Nuñez being in contention for a gold glove award. You know, at some point here, I would like for national MLB media to take notice of what the Nats are doing. I still feel like the Nats are getting zero attention, and I understand it. The team is rebuilding. It's not like the team's record is that good, but this team has the #1 offense in the sport, and I feel like a little more respect and attention should be given to this team from, again, national media. The Nats starting pitcher in this game, Zack Littell, he was good for a second consecutive outing. That's how good things are for the Nats right now. Zack Littell is getting on track. He allowed 2 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 3 singles. He had 3 strikeouts versus no walks. But here's my favorite part of Zack Littell's outing. Pitch efficient. How often have we said that about any Nats pitcher this season? 5 innings, a mere 60 pitches, and he threw a ton of strikes, 41 strikes, 19 balls. Did give up a homer by Juan Soto, gave up a 2-out solo homer by Soto to right in the Mets' 1-run third, cut the Nats lead to 4-2. That homer going a projected 416 feet per Statcast. Now, in all fairness, Littell did give up some hard contact. That also was the case in his previous outing, the 3-2 win over the Baltimore Orioles at Nationals Park this past Friday evening. But Littell in that game, 5 shutout innings. Littell in this game, 2 runs in 5 innings. Beggars shall not be choosers, given how poorly this guy was doing. Really nice to see him do better over these last 2 outings.
Yeah, and what I'll add to that, the other anomaly of this one, at least it felt like it was to me, he didn't have a single ground ball off him. Every out was a fly ball or a strikeout. And as you said, there was some loud contact there. And that would normally suggest to you that maybe this was a little bit of a lucky performance or he wasn't quite as good as the results would suggest. But I asked him about that after the game. He doesn't view that as a bad thing. He's never thought of himself really as a ground ball pitcher. He wants to go after hitters. Having no ground balls is not necessarily a bad thing in your mind. There's other ways to get out.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, I've never been a huge ground ball guy to begin with. Would I like some more balls to be on the ground? Sure.
You know, he's trying to avoid the barrel of the bat, but he wants fly balls. That might lead to why, he gives up so many home runs as well. But he thinks of himself as a fly ball pitcher, and he thinks if he's executing his pitches well enough, those are going to be caught. And so he actually said that the process he used in this game, he thought was the best that he's had so far this year, as far as what he was throwing, how he was throwing it, the efficiency to get through 5 innings on 60 pitches. And yes, to get all those fly outs for him, that was a good sign, not necessarily a bad sign that you might think with other pitchers. Hey, you didn't even get a single ball on the ground. That's not good, right? In his mind, that was not a bad thing.
That's interesting. I mean, that is a dangerous game to play when you're pitching to fly balls because, as we know, fly balls can become home runs, and he's given up a lot of home runs. But, hey, it worked on Wednesday evening for sure. And the Nats in this game used just one pitcher beyond Zack Littell, Andrew Alvarez, who in what ended up being a tandem outing with Zack Littell, was good once again. 2 runs in 4 innings. I know that may not sound like, he was lights out. He gave up a 2-run homer by who else? Juan Soto. But Alvarez had 5 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He ended each of his first 3 innings with a strikeout. I love that. And to me, he was impressive again. And you look now at what he has done at the major league level over the last 2 seasons. 8 games, 5 starts, ERA of 2.60, WHIP 1.07. strikeouts per 9 innings of 9.09. And the Nats, late night on Wednesday night, announced having option reliever P.J. Poulin to AAA Rochester. And so it does look like Andrew Alvarez is sticking around at the major league level.
We've been talking about this for a while now. Is there any chance they would keep him? And if so, in what role? How would they do that? The answer finally is yes. They're going to keep him for now. And the way Blake Butera said it, they're just going to stick with this plan.
I think we can do it. At least we're going to try.
And pair up Littell and Alvarez every 5 days. So it's almost like they're going to carry a sixth starter who just pitches on the same day as the fifth starter and carry one fewer like traditional reliever. This has worked twice now and also worked when Alvarez was paired with Miles Mikolas earlier in the year. I don't know if that's sustainable in the long run to use a guy strictly in that role where he's only pitching every 5 days. But they've seen enough to say, we want to stick with this, at least until it's proven that it can't work. I love it. I'm just glad to see him up here. We've discussed, like, maybe he doesn't wow you with his stuff or, the metrics, the scouting report, all that might suggest that he's not going to be an elite big league pitcher. And maybe in the long run, that will be true. But you outlined the results there. He has been good basically every time he's pitched in the big league so far. You owe it to him and your team to find out if he can continue to do that. And so I love that this is going to be the plan with him. And I thought the ultimate compliment came from Zack Littell. In talking about Alvarez, he said he's probably better than at least one, if not many, of our current starting pitchers right now.
I think Alvy's a weapon to have. I think you could plug him into the rotation right now, and he's just as good, if not better, than a lot of us.
He's probably referring to himself when he says that. He said that as the ultimate compliment. It was not a dig at the others, but boy, did that say a lot right there.
Wow, that is something that he said that. That is really interesting that comment got out there. I mean, look, even if Alvarez doesn't have great stuff, like I said, 9.09 strikeouts per 9 innings, that's really good. I mean, there are guys with good stuff who don't get to 9.09 strikeouts per 9 innings. I was thinking about this. So we think of a pitching staff as starters and relievers. Could it be that Paul Taboni is thinking of the pitching staff as 3 levels of you have your starters, you have your long men, and then you have your more traditional relievers? Because right now, as we have discussed, you have Andrew Alvarez, you have Brad Lord, you have Mitchell Parker as 3 non-starters who are not traditional relievers. They are like starter relievers. They are guys who are being used as long men. Could it be that that's like the long-term pitching staff paradigm that Taboni is envisioning here without saying it, of like he wants to have a pitching staff with sort of 3 categories as opposed to the usual 2?
I think it's a reflection of what they have in the organization right now. And I think Blake Butera is all for it. It's kind of a Tampa Bay Rays way of going about things. I think that's a reflection of them saying, we don't have many, if any, like just proven workhorse starting pitchers that can give you 6 quality innings every time out there. And so because of that, they're assembling a staff that's catered to what they have. And right now, if you're going to have a rotation that technically includes Littell and Mikolas and even Jake Irvin, you kind of need these others to back them up. And so I think credit to the 3 who have done this and done it so well that they have kind of forced that issue to say, yes, let's keep them all and try to deploy them that way. But I would believe deep down, if you ask Blake Butera and Paul Taboni, what kind of pitching staff would you, in your perfect world, would you have? They would say, I want real starters who can give me 6-7 innings and then go to traditional relievers after that. Maybe one long man is a nice thing to have whenever the situation arises. I don't think they would go into it and say, in our perfect world, we would plan on tandeming 2 pitchers together and having to do it as often as they are. The key to this, if they do stick with it, is going to be, do the other 5 traditional relievers, are they able to be effective enough and pitch enough that they don't get worn down, or that essentially you're only going with a 5-man bullpen, quote unquote, in that sense, because you're saving 3 guys to only pitch sporadically in long relief. So can they handle that workload and be effective enough to allow you to continue with this group as is?
Yeah, I mean, the approach does require having a lot of optionable arms and having a bunch of guys at AAA who you feel comfortable with in terms of elevating them to the majors. It's not easy to do, but it does seem like, at least for now, that's the way that the Nats are attacking things.
And just one other thing as far as the post-game move, sending Poulin down. Why did they make a move at all? Because they didn't announce it yet, but it sure seems like this is what's going to happen. Clayton Beeter's ready to come off the IL. He's made 2 rehab appearances at Rochester, made another one on Tuesday. Perfect inning on 8 pitches. He looks ready to go. So if the idea was Beeter's ready and they're going to activate him on Thursday, somebody had to go. Alvarez has pitched too well to be sent down, so he's staying. Who's going to go? You got to pick one of these other guys who has options. And I don't think it's a declaration that they don't like Poulin. We're going to see him again for sure. It's just, where are they at this moment? And if you already have Richard Lovelady pitching well from the left side, and you have 2 lefties, long men in Mitchell Parker and Andrew Alvarez, maybe you don't need that 4th lefty in Poulin. So that's why he went down, and I expect to see Clayton Beeter on Thursday.
By the way, Mark mentioned the Tampa Bay Rays' best record in the majors, 33-15. How about the run that the Rays are on? 21 wins in 25 games, from 12-11 to 33-15. And of course, the Rays employed Blake Butera. The Rays employed the Nats general manager, Ani Kalambi. The process, people, the process, it is working. It has the Nats at 25-25. We have game 4 of this 4-game series against the Mets at Nationals Park on Thursday afternoon at 4:05. The Nats have Cade Cavalli as their probable starting pitcher for the game. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Shirt Good, owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan who surely is happy right now. Shirt Good makes funny and local shirts such as the iconic Howie Kendrick foul pole shirt. Check out Shirt Good at shirtgoodhq.com or shirtgoodhq on Instagram, and use the promo code NatsChat for 10% off your order. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
Here's the set and the 2-2. Swing a line drive, base hit through the drawn-in infield. Out into left field between Beatty and Bichette. Keibert Ruiz delivers Nuñez from third, and the Nationals lead it 4-1. Ruiz has 13 RBIs in his last 7 games. Stay hot, Keibert Ruiz.